schmoozing.
Let's get into
We gotta
it.
do some schmoozing, Maestro. We got some schmoozing.
Music.
Let's
Schmoozing.
schmooze.
Schmoozing. I ain't schmoozing till I see a clock burning up in flames.
The
We'll
clock.
stay here all
Is the
day,
clock
Maestro.
burning up?
There we go.
There you go.
I don't know. Yeah,
Oh,
clock's,
it is.
clock's
Oh, I
burning up
thought
in
it, no, I
flames.
thought it was the coffee.
Oh, I thought it's the clock.
No,
I thought it's the clock.
You know
it's
what,
the
boys?
coffee steam.
I'm gonna need you guys to get it together.
Maestro, can you play that one more time and we can determine whether that's the clock
It's a
blowing
clock.
up or the coffee?
I think it's coffee steam.
Where's
See,
the
that's the
coffee?
steam. That's coffee. Coffee in the clock.
Coffee in a clock.
It's a 2-in-1. Have you ever had that?
I'm
Look,
going to tell you something.
I've always known that. I was like, why
take
you
it
always say
there.
the cock is
For
blown,
what?
blown
For this
up?
entire time.
For 2 straight years now, I never realized that was a coffee cup. I thought I am
No,
dead
the
serious.
time's up.
The time, yeah, I thought it was like the time's up. We're ready to schmooze now.
Brad is with the
Nobody-
movement. Time is up.
Nobody told me that was coffee in
Lord
there.
have
I just
mercy.
thought it was a clock going up in flames.
Look at
It
his
is not.
aha moment.
That's how it was explained
It's
to
a
me.
schmooze. You gotta wake up.
Right.
Boy, you know,
Coffee's been cooking.
It's like a Rorschach test on Bradshaw Live. You know,
The
you
pop
put up,
quiz
you
today.
put up like a picture and everybody sees something different.
Right, right. Is it a blue or black dress? That's what it is.
Right, remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, from the internet.
That was a mess.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's at the NATO summit.
Here we
and, for 70 plus years, NATO has kept the peace around the world, as a matter of fact. We've had the longest prosperity of peace without major world wars for the last 70 years. And unfortunately for NATO, Donald Trump is trying to break it up in a way that may not be beneficial for the world. But I understand at least his rationale, because the United States is paying a substantial portion of the defense of NATO and wants other countries to pay up as well. But in so doing, he's really causing a rift between Europe and the United States, which is to the benefit of Russia and China, who are the West's adversaries at the moment. As a matter of fact, the president of France, Macron, said in a recent article that he doesn't believe that the United States may even come to the defense of Europe if Europe was attacked.
Oh, wow.
That it's come to that.
Damn.
So this is, the United States, Trump, basically making Europe an enemy,
Right.
but cozying up to a lot of dictators such as
His allies close.
such as the North Korean dictator, the Brazilian dictator. He's not a dictator; he was elected, but he's as close to a dictator as he can be. The guy from Turkey. He seems to like dictators, but doesn't seem to like elected officials. So sitting alongside Trump, Macron and Trump had a fight publicly before the cameras. Macron told The Economist last month, it all started, as I told you, told The Economist last month that Europe can no longer rely on the United States to defend NATO. His blunt comments came after the Trump administration pulled forces out of Syria because they said, well, if you're gonna abandon the Kurds who are your allies, maybe you'll abandon the Europeans next. We have a video. Let's watch. We do have a video? Maybe we don't have a video. 1 second, I'm told.
Okay.
I'm told about a video in 1 second. If we don't have a video,
Would you like some nice ISIS fighters? Look, I can give them to you.
Look at the situation.
You can take every one you want.
Let's be serious.
So Macron said after that, that's ridiculous. And that's not what he said. I'm saying that's ridiculous. Macron says this is serious. A small percentage of fighters come from Europe. The majority come from Syria. Getting rid of ISIS is our number one priority. Number one. Also today, when asked what he thought about Macron's previous statements about NATO, Trump said he thought the French leader had been very disrespectful. Let's watch this. We'll watch it.
And I heard that President Macron said NATO is brain dead. I think that's very insulting to a lot of different forces.
So this has basically been soured the relationship between the United States and France, and it's a problem because what has kept the peace is a strong NATO. And when Russia and our adversaries China see that we are not strongly united, that's when Russia invades Crimea and nothing happens. And maybe they'll invade another country and nothing will happen because we don't have a strong alliance, and that's a problem.
Right.
It's a big problem. Meanwhile, in the presidential race, we saw Michael Bloomberg join the race.
Yes.
But Kamala Harris is now dropping out.
Yeah, I
Yes.
saw that commercial. I was like, wait a minute. This is Michael
one?
Bloomberg. Well,
Oh.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, this is really like the announcement. This is seriously happening right now.
Yeah, Bloomberg joined, but
He
Kamala,
took it there.
Yeah, but Kamala Harris is now out of the race. Now she started out. She was right up there.
She was.
She started off very
Yeah.
strong. A lot of people were saying, could she be the first black female president?
Right.
Yeah.
She's half Jamaican, I think, and half Indian. But unfortunately, she couldn't get it together because she started out more moderate and then tacked to the left and said, okay, Medicaid for all. And then when she found out that, Medicaid for all may win the Democratic nomination, but it won't win the general election because most people don't want Medicaid for all,
Right.
then I take it, Medicare for all, excuse me, then I'm going to take it back. It's not going to be Medicare for all. And then people started questioning her as a prosecutor before she became a senator because she was prosecuting a lot of minorities and putting a lot of minorities in jail as a female minority prosecutor,
Right.
and she didn't really have good answers for why she was doing that. And as a result, she lost all of her momentum.
Right.
And now has.
mean-
And she said in a statement that if she were to continue, she would be going into debt.
You're right, I
And
heard it
she's
was a lot of financial.
Right, and she's not willing to go
do
into
that.
debt to run for president. Michael Bloomberg doesn't have to worry about that.
He is, what is it, 53 billion?
53 billion. Trump doesn't have to worry about that.
Right.
Sheesh.
You know, because if you're not a billionaire, you spend 80 to 90% of your time raising money
Right.
to compete against
People that do.
people who have money.
Right.
Yep.
And that is a problem with the political system in America right now. And it changed. There used to be government-funded campaigns.
Really?
And the Supreme Court overruled it in U.S. United Citizens in the early 2000s, where now you can get unlimited contributions from anybody. So now it's just a race to see who can raise the most money. There's
Right.
no really government matching
Yeah.
anymore. So Harris tweeted to her supporters, "It is with deep regret, but also with deep gratitude, that I am suspending my campaign today. But I want to be clear with you, I will keep fighting every day for what this campaign has been about, justice for the people, all the people." Now, the high point of her campaign came during the first presidential debate, when she attacked former Vice President Joe Biden for his stance on desegregation efforts in the 1970s. But what was strange about that, and we talked about this, Jonathan, was that despite that, she couldn't get the minority vote and support that she thought she would get because she herself is a minority.
Right.
And we talked about that a lot of minority candidates were taking for granted the black vote, the minority vote, and they can't take it for granted. A lot of people are now going to vote for who's going to make my life best.
That's
Yep.
what
not,
it should be.
Not who I'm going to vote for because they look like me.
Yeah.
And that seems to be changing, at least certainly in the Democratic
Yes.
nomination process.
Yeah.
And that's why apparently Joe Biden is still leading, and he thinks he's going to win just on the minority vote, especially once the primaries go down south to South Carolina, where the minority vote is majority of the
There's
the
a
vote
lot of
for the Democrats.
gentrification happening.
Yeah.
It's just like we're saying, a lot of people want someone that's going to make their life, easier, better.
Well, I think that's how everybody has to vote.
Right.
That's how it should
That's how I vote.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you something. Not only that's how I vote, it's how I hire. Because if you ever look around my office,
That's very true.
Right.
okay, my office doesn't look like me. It doesn't look like you either. It looks like a melting pot of the world.
Absolutely.
Because
very true.
when I hire people, I say who's going to do the best job for Brad Bernstein.
Right.
Right.
And you get what you get in my office. And that's how I also vote for president. Who's going to do the best for me? May not. Now, who's going to do the best for Brad may not be the same for who's going to do the best for Vanessa.
Right.
Because we're in different positions.
Right.
Yep.
All right. You guys are millennials. You're younger. I'm older. I'm in I don't know. Maybe you're a billionaire. I don't know. I'm not a billionaire, but I would
Right.
assume we have different economic interests and and
There's
also,
general interest too,
and
though.
in general interests in maybe what's important to you in the list of things. And I don't know. I know a lot of women are pro-choice. That to me is the most. A woman would say that to me is the most important, or
Yep.
gender rights, or civil rights. Maybe to Jonathan, maybe to Brad, it's something else. Not to say those are important,
Right.
but in everybody's bucket,
Immigration rights.
immigration
Right,
rights,
right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When I look at a candidate, if they are not 100% pro-immigration, they don't get Brad's support.
Right.
That's right up there on my
Right.
bucket of what's most important.
Right.
And to me, though, and that's how everybody should vote. So it's just not because of this is what you look like or you share the same religion or the same skin as
Right.
me. But ultimately, no matter who is the Democratic candidate, I am very certain that they will do better for all of us than the orange
guy.
pumpkin
I totally agree.
in the White House. Meanwhile, tomorrow starts the House Judiciary Committee impeachment inquiry. They basically will now be voting on whether to impeach Donald Trump. It's going to start with 4 professors who are going to talk about the historical context of impeachment. Basically, the Democrats laid out today their reasoning for impeachment, which we have said time and time again, that Donald Trump took his position of power and tried to make a deal with the Ukrainian president to investigate his political opponent, and that subverted or superseded the interests of the United States of America in getting aid to the president, and it was a bribery because he was withholding the aid, and he was also withholding a meeting, which is very coveted for presidents from all around the world to come to the White House and meet the president of the United States. Now, Trump, his defense is it was a perfect call, the call where there is a transcript that was basically the quid pro quo, which was the bribery. He says it was perfect. He did nothing wrong. He's entitled to investigate anything he wants. And yes, it's important that Ukraine have transparency. It's important that there's no corruption in Ukraine, especially when the United States is giving $400 million. You want to make sure that that money is going to the right purpose.
Yep.
But if your only inquiry into corruption in Ukraine is Joe Biden's
Joe
son
Biden.
on a board of directors of a company from several years ago that he's no longer even on a board of directors of, that seems to be a problem.
Right.
And they laid out today basically how this whole bribery happened. The ambassador of the United States to Ukraine, Yanovich, she was the female, they basically made up a lot of stuff about her. They conspired to make stuff up about her to get rid of her because she was not going to get the dirt on Joe Biden. Once they made up all this stuff about her to get rid of her, the 3 amigos came in. That was Sondland, who turned on Trump,
Right.
Volker, and Rick Perry, who was the energy secretary, along with Giuliani, basically took over the vacuum of the departed Ukrainian ambassador. And their foreign policy was, we don't care about Ukraine at all. We care less about Ukraine. God bless you. I don't really care whether you're in a war with Russia or not. You can do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
But if you want $400 million from the United States, give us something on
Give
Biden,
me dirt.
because he's going to be the opponent against Donald Trump in the 2020 election.
So
Right.
interesting where so much of our money goes.
And that's basically what happened. Now the Republicans, when they always tell you in law school, if you ever go to law school, when the law is not on your side, you argue the facts, and when the facts are not on your side, you argue the law. Well, the law's not on Trump's side. It seems to be it's a bribery.
Yep.
So they're arguing the facts that, well, he didn't do anything wrong. Yes, it's exactly what happened was what happened. The man did absolutely nothing wrong. It's like a completely different fact pattern than what we're seeing here. And we'll see what happens. You know, when you read out the Democratic point by point all of their issues that they had with Donald Trump and this bribery, it seems pretty bad. And you say to yourself, how can any Republican, say he didn't do anything wrong? But then if you're a Republican, you say, well, if I go against Donald Trump, I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
You know, he kind of basically took over the Republican Party.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens. But my guess, unless something dramatic happens, my guess is that he will be impeached in the House, he will survive in the Senate, and the American people will be the appeals court.
This is your prediction.
That is my prediction.
And it usually
Noted.
goes right.
Now, I will say one other thing. One of Trump's biggest defenses, and I thought about this today, and I haven't read anything about this, but one of his biggest defenses is he says, well, the president of Ukraine has come out and said there was no quid pro quo. He says there was no bribery. So if the president of Ukraine says there's no bribery, then how could there be a crime? Well, no, and then everyone says, well, if you go to rob a bank, but you didn't actually rob the bank, it's still an attempted robbery. If I shoot yo-yo and I miss, it's still an attempted murder. But I even thought about something else. Why would the president of the Ukraine say, yes, I felt like I was being bribed. Yes, I feel like it was a quid pro quo. Because you want to know why? He's in a war with Russia, not only in July, not only in August, but today on December 3rd, Ukraine is still in a war with Russia. Okay? And they still need money from the United States.
Right.
And already Donald Trump has withheld money once. So they don't care what happens in the United States. As long as the money's flowing. So he's not going to go against Donald Trump because Donald Trump could shut off the valve of money.
Right.
So of course he's going to say, of course he's going to say there was no quid pro quo.
He's bribed to say he wasn't bribed.
It's everybody being scared for their own well-being.
Right. So the Ukrainian president's going to say, I'm not being bribed because he needs the money to come in December and January. Imagine he says, yeah, you know what? When I was on that call, I really felt like it was being strong-armed. And then Donald Trump will shut off the money on December 4th.
Cut him off.
And then they're like, boss, we have no bullets to fire at the Russians. We're in a war. Well, Donald shut the money off. So they're more concerned about their life and the sanctity of their country, let alone the political process.
They have their own priorities.
They have their own problems. So of course he's going to say that. And nobody said that, but I thought about that.
That's true.
You're speaking about it. I'm like, who's to say he wasn't bribed to say he wasn't bribed?
Exactly.
He needs it to keep flowing.
That's right. I mean, who's to say that somebody said, here, take a couple $1 million.
Here's some more. Here's just hush up.
Who knows? So, what else is happening here? The appeals court said that Trump still has to hand over his tax returns. We're going to talk about that.
Still talking about that?
Yeah, we're still going to talk about that after the Supreme Court has their say on it, because it's going to go up to the Supreme Court. So, what else we got here? Melania Trump has a book out. We can talk about that tomorrow.
Right.
Did she write it?
I'll tell you one thing.
No, I have a question. Did she write it?
She did not write
it. Okay.
No, it's not. By the way, it's not a book that she wrote. It's a book about her. Okay, but we can talk about that tomorrow because there's a lot in there that I can comment on. And we got to get to immigration questions soon. But I did see a couple of other things I did want to talk about. One thing is that this isn't, when the pumpkin does something decent, you gotta give a pumpkin a prop every so often, right? So you may have remembered, you weren't here at the time.
Okay.
But Jonathan, you may have remembered a few months ago, I interviewed a woman by the name of Roxanne White. She was the founder of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives. She was the Native American who was bringing attention to the cause that remember her?
Yeah.
She's bringing attention to the cause that there are a lot of Native American women who go missing every year, get killed, raped, abducted, put into slavery, and nobody talks about it. And she came on our show and she was leading the discussion and bringing it out in the open, that even though Native American women are a very, very, very small percentage of the people who live in America, as a group, there is no group that is being raped, murdered, abused, kidnapped, put into sexual slavery more than Native American women.
Really?
Yes. Wow. So last Tuesday, got to give a pumpkin his due, Donald Trump signed an executive order. This is not even from Congress. This was just him doing it. Establishing a task force to address the rash of violence against missing and murdered American Indian women and Alaska Natives, an issue the administration has been focusing on for many months. So the Native American women experience, obviously, as I said, some of the highest rates of domestic violence, murder, abduction, sexual abuse, and a lot of times they're abducted and put into slavery, sex slaves.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he's doing something. Donald Trump was joined by Attorney General William Barr, administrative staff, and a number of Native American tribal leaders. Trump told reporters that executive action on the issue should have been done a long time ago. I agree with him.
Yep.
I'm glad something's being done.
Yeah.
But just because you do, you help, as I said, this is not a good analogy, but because you're helping an old lady across the street doesn't mean you're not a jerk every other day of the
Listen,
of the week.
one good deed is not going
that doesn't
to
outweigh
eliminate
the millions of bad things that he has done.
But I mean, he did do something for what I would say is still something that's happening in the world, sex slavery and things of the sort. We talked about it for a little bit.
Right.
We told everybody to just be cautious, and then we don't really speak about it again. So now
Right.
for it to come back, let's give the pumpkin a little bit of.
And now what I don't know if it's you would say ironic, hypocritical. I'm not sure what it would be, but there are reports that the pumpkin did have dinner parties with Jeffrey Epstein, who himself was abducting women, maybe not kidnapping them, by hood and handcuff. Maybe he was, who knows? But certainly
that he knew
coercing them and forcing them into any sort of prostitution underage. And Donald Trump was there at dinner parties with him many, many times. Which goes back to a lot of people saying he was murdered.
Brad gave Trump like 2 seconds. He's like, well, but let's remember
burning
that.
his tongue to say anything nice.
And I don't know if have you seen like there's celebrities who are like accepting awards and stuff, and they're coming out at the end of the speeches and like Epstein was murdered, right? Have you seen that?
Yes.
Right? So I mean, people, who knows? I mean, there's a whole million conspiracy theories.
Right.
He was murdered by Prince Andrew. He was murdered by the Trumps. He was murdered by the Clintons. Bill was at dinner with Epstein too. So, you know what? I do know this. Okay, at least I know for a fact me.
Right.
I assume you too. Mm-hmm. None of us ever had dinner with Mr. Epstein.
No.
Right.
No.
So it was not us. It was not us who murdered.
Wasn't there.
It was not us.
We weren't there.
Who murdered Mr. Epstein? You may also remember, Jonathan, and you were not here at the time. We had the girlfriend of Arizona teacher Scott Warren on our show.
Yes.
And he was the man who was part of a group that was putting water down in the desert to help migrants come who would cross over the border so that they wouldn't die in the desert. He was basically, they were leaving water for them, and this was the girlfriends of this man. They were leaving water in the desert, so migrants would come running across the border. They would either die of starvation, they would die of dehydration in the desert, because they would have to go through very rugged areas, because near the cities you got big fences.
Yeah.
So they were leaving water so people wouldn't die.
Oh wow.
And he did something even allegedly more than that. He was arrested for alien smuggling and illegally harboring aliens because he was giving humanitarian aid to them in his home or place of business as well. Now, according to court documents on January 17th, 2018, Border Patrol agents were conducting surveillance of a barn in which this guy Scott Warren was at. And they were aid workers stored supplies such as water and food. And when they saw Warren with two men who were suspected of being an undocumented immigrant, and he was helping them with food and water after they crossed over the border, he was arrested for alien smuggling, harboring illegal aliens. He was facing almost life in prison. And on recently, we have a clip, by the way. Which I'm going to show you in a second, but recently he was found not guilty by a jury in Arizona. Now, we had we had interviewed Anna Alderstein and Emily Saunders. Emily was Scott's girlfriend, and we spoke about their case just after it first resulted in a mistrial. This was the second trial where he was found innocent. Let's watch. Let's watch. Now, Emily, you have worked with No More Deaths, the same organization that Scott Warren is associated with. Now, Scott was on trial in Arizona, facing 20 years for alien smuggling because he was providing humanitarian aid to migrants in a different way in which the two of you are, but similar humanitarian aid. Now, the trial ended in a deadlock verdict. What is the solution here?
I think that's a question we need to turn back towards Border Patrol, CBP, Customs and Border Protection, ICE, DHS, and the United States government. As border residents living here in homes, in neighborhoods, and going to churches where on any given day we can expect a migrant to knock on the door and plead for life-saving humanitarian assistance, our solution is to search our conscience and act in the moment according to our deepest values, according to our deepest beliefs about what a healthy society looks like. It's compassion and kindness. And we're being asked to do that in a culture where that work is increasingly criminalized. We are here witnessing something unprecedented and, yes, very scary, that has huge implications about the future of our country.
So that's what happened there with Scott Warren. I just want to go through it quickly because we have so much stuff here.
Right.
Yeah.
And last year we talked about this on Thanksgiving, and if I don't talk about it soon, we will talk about it next year on Thanksgiving. If you remember the grandma, you may remember this story too.
Which one?
This is the grandma.
We had like a bunch of grandmas on the show.
Well, this grandmother accidentally invited a stranger to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes. I love this story.
And texted what she thought was
her
the grandson. And it turns out, here's this like elderly or middle-aged white woman, and she texted, this young black man thinking it's her grandson. Obviously, they don't look alike.
Right.
All right. And
she had text him, was like, come to dinner at my house.
And he showed up.
He was like, who's this?
Yeah.
She was like, your grandma. He was like, can you send me a picture? And she sent a picture of her face. And then he sent a picture right back saying, it's not me, but can I still come?
Yeah.
And she was like, that's what grandmas are for,
That's
to feed.
right.
Yeah.
So and he came. So now he's come again this year. It's like,
Fourth year.
Right? It was like, where was that? I never saw it, but I assume it's similar to the Sidney Poitier movie.
I haven't seen it.
You know what I'm talking about? Like who's invited to, when he's invited to the dinner, but I never saw the movie. But you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. So any event, the photos quickly went viral, and this is a very nice Thanksgiving Day story. The two have celebrated Thanksgiving ever since 2016, snapping adorable photos each time to commemorate their friendship. So now this kid is now 20. I guess he was about 16 or 17 when this happened. They tweeted a new picture of the duo this year alongside snaps from the previous year's writing as promised. Here's our 2019 update. Do we have the pictures?
Update.
I think we just sent it, but now let me look because I didn't look before.
Yeah.
Do we have these pictures?
Yeah, it looks like it's
there
on
we
a
are.
tweet.
That's
Yeah,
cute.
see from the first one to the fourth.
That's
really
so
dope.
funny.
Yeah, we have a little video as well. Let's see.
That is so funny.
Black Friday deals. Well, obviously.
They're vlogging it now.
That's awesome.
All right. So, and finally, it was Black Friday,
Black Friday.
which pulled in $7.4 billion in sales.
Yep.
You were busy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Shopping or working?
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both.
And then Monday was Cyber Monday, which is
That was
the
good
sales
too.
online. That was good too.
Oh, yeah.
And today, you know what today is?
What?
It's Giving Tuesday. It's celebrated on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It's devoted to charitable causes, allowing people to focus on others. And it dates back to 2012. And it was started by the 92nd Street Y right here in Manhattan.
Nice.
So what can you do to help? If you search under the hashtag Giving Tuesday on social media, it turns up countless organizations where you can donate to a good cause, including Leukemia Lymphoma Society and Habitat for Humanity. So we have now Jonathan and Vanessa. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Giving Tuesday, and Hump Day Wednesday.
Hump Day Wednesday.
That's
I already knew that was coming.
All right. Why don't you tell everybody what... Thanks for watching. For more Brad Show Live, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.